Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. So my name is Nathan Turner. I am from Canada. I live just outside of Calgary, Alberta, close to the Rockies, right by Banff National Park.
Great. And let's just dig into what your past leading up into your present.
Sure. So I started out as a real estate investor. A lot of people that do what I do started that way. And I was doing fix and flip. I was a landlord for a little while. And what I learned was that was a lot of work. And it became just very labor intensive. What I liked about the landlord business was I liked that I could get that monthly income, but it also meant that it was a lot of work taking care of the property. So a few years later, I was introduced into this business. They call it the note business, where I buy and sell residential mortgages. And so essentially what that means is I buy a mortgage instead of the property. So the mortgage, of course, is attached to the property. So that's my underlying collateral. That's my kind of backup plan if I need to. But really, I kind of step into the role of a bank and I start collecting payments without all the headaches that came along with owning property.
So through the mortgage, you collect payments from the people that are, what do you call it? It's not renting, it's
borrowers.
Borrowers.
Yeah. Homeowners, borrowers, people living in the house.
Okay. Tell me more. So yeah.
It's such a cool business. Anybody who hears about this usually says, I've never heard of that, which is generally true. I had never heard of it either. But it's a way to get into real estate, kind of. It's a finance game where I'm buying the financing attached to the property. So like I say, if something goes wrong, if the person in the house stops paying for some reason, if I need to, we can go after that property, and that's the security. Most of the time, the good news is most of the time I don't need to. 99% of the cases, if there's trouble with the person that's making the payments, we can have our conversation, figure out what's going to work, and we can just modify their loan and help them to stay in their house, continue to make payments, and everybody wins. It's a fantastic business. I absolutely love it.
Do you have to have like a large monetary benefits in order to get into this side of real estate?
Yes and no. So it's a cash business. Like, you're not going to be able to get funding from a bank to do this. So it's all about private capital. So I have my own fund. People invest into the fund, and then they can participate passively while I go and buy these mortgage notes. But generally speaking, yeah, it's all cash, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your own cash. You can borrow from friends, family, neighbors to go out and do this business if you don't have the cash yourself.
How many people have you went with the business of what is it, when you were doing the business in real estate, like, because it's a slither of a real estate what you're doing now, it's a slither, but what you were doing, which was invest, like, I don't know what you call it, you just said it, but when you were doing these business, tell me more about how many people you got on board, like investing in getting somebody renting or borrowers and everything.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Sure. I've done hundreds of these. So I got started in 2009. And back then, if you kind of think back, there was just a ton of defaulted loans where people were not making payments. So that's when I got started. So I was buying these defaulted loans where people were already not making payments. And then my job was to go in and figure out what we could do, how we could, turn it around one way or another. In a lot of cases, the house was already vacant. Either the borrower passed away, they died, or they just had abandoned the property. Maybe it was an investment property they had picked up and now couldn't afford it and didn't know what else to do. So they just kind of left and just nobody was there. So oftentimes they're vacant. Ones where they were occupied, those are the ones where I could go in and start that conversation and say, okay, look, we're in an impasse here. You've got this outstanding debt on this property. Obviously, we can't just leave it like that. So what can we do? How can we work this out? And we've done all kinds of different things. We've gone from, raising interest rates, lowering interest rates. Their payments have gone up. Their monthly payment has actually gone up in some cases, most of the time down. We've got their arrears, their past due amounts that we can deal with in all kinds of creative ways. Anything from forgiving the loan to tacking it back onto the end of their loan to, maybe they've got money saved up and they can pay off that arrears and get back on track. So almost limitless possibilities and options. It just kind of depends on what works for the borrower and what works for me. So since I got started in 2009 up until today, oh gosh, maybe 300 or 400, somewhere in that range, somewhere in that neighborhood. I've done a lot.
Wow, that is amazing. Like I don't know much about the real estate and the slither of the real estate with what you doing, private investments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning, and it
Yeah.
makes me. You said you rather do private investing. So tell me, like, if you had to give a piece of advice to an entrepreneur that want to be in your shoes, what would you get into first if you had to rewind the tape and you knew about all three of these things?
Sure. Very first thing I would say is get some kind of education. And that's not even a pitch. I don't teach, but I can hook you up with people that do. But it's really important to understand the difference between real estate investing and what we're doing. Like you say, it's attached to real estate, but we're not actually buying the real estate. So it's a bit of a different game. It's a finance game. So there are rules that go along with that. Different states have different rules, different requirements. And so getting that education up front is really important. And like I say, I can definitely point you in the right direction of people that can teach you how to do that.
Wow. And when you did this, like what kind of education did you get? Did you get education in all three sectors?
I got education from, I actually joined 3 different people that were teaching the business. And I took their classes for each one of them and then kind of took what each one was teaching and decided, okay, I like what they're doing. I kind of like better what this person's doing. And this one's a little bit different, and just kind of that more rounded education. And then after that, just hard knocks and just kind of figuring it out as you go and, experiment and do it better the next time kind of thing. I did a lot of that, especially early on.
If you had to give like how much you put down, like say how much you had to put down your first time a private investment, what
Yeah.
would it be? Like how much did you have to put down to feel comfortable with moving forward in that
Yeah.
business?
So after I got some of that education, some of those classes I took, my very first deal was a package of 3 non-performing notes. So loans that had gone bad. People were not making payments. And keep in mind, this was a long time ago and times were different, but it was 3 different loans that I bought for a total of $10,000. And that gave me all kinds of room to kind of figure out how to deal with these. In that case, one exit that you can do, and the thing that I did in that case, was I approached the homeowners who no longer lived in the house. In fact, in all 3 cases, they were people who had bought these properties back in like 05, 06 when lending was really loose, and they picked up these properties with bank lending. And then the intention was they were going to rent the house and just keep it as an income property. Of course, that all went south in 2007, 2008. And now they were stuck with this vacant property. In this case, it was all in Columbus, Ohio. So I approached the homeowner who lived in a different house than the one that I was working with and said, like, I'm not here to collect any money, but I am interested in just taking over your property. So if you will sign the property over to me, I will wipe out the debt that's outstanding on this property. And 3 for 3, they all said, oh, that sounds fantastic. Are you kidding me? Great. And so they signed the property over to me. Their loan goes away. Now they no longer have any obligation towards that loan or the property. And then in that case, I became the homeowner. And then I took that and resold the house out to other people. So that was my very, very first deal. And like I say, unfortunately, that kind of pricing doesn't exist anymore, but it was a fantastic opportunity. Great way to get started.
Have somebody ever given you like advice? I know that's like a loaded question, but like
Yeah.
about this whole thing, as you progress to moving from real estate genre to real estate genre, like did they ever give you advice on where to go?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Oh, goodness me. I would seek out advice, especially when I was getting started, is okay, so how do I do this better? What, in this kind of a situation, how do you deal with that? And all the time. And it's a great community of people that do this. It's, as you can imagine, it's not a huge community of note investors that are out there. But we do exist, and we love to get together and talk and swap stories and, talk shop and do business together. I do business with a lot of my colleagues. So tons and tons of different advice. I'll give you one specific one. So I remember talking to a friend where he had kind of gone to, I would call it the next level, where he had started an investment fund. And so I was asking him some advice on that because I was thinking of going that direction, and now we have. But his advice back then was to have a certain portion of that fund be what we call performing notes, where people are making regular payments. And in that way, there's cash flow moving all the way through already. So then I have cash to pay my investors on a quarterly basis. And then we can continue on with other deals that are maybe going to make more money, but we've got that base to help make sure that our investors are paid on a regular basis. So that was one piece. And we've followed that. In fact, we've gone to a role where now we're just buying all performing notes where people are making regular on-time payments, and it just works incredibly well. And so we're happy to do that and keep doing what we're doing.
Tell me about the company that you're president of.
Yeah, so it's called Earnest Investing, and with this company, like I say, it's actually a 506c fund. So if that means anything to anybody, it basically means that gives me the ability to go out and advertise what I'm doing to people who are interested in investing. With the 506c fund, one of the stipulations is that anybody who wants to invest has to be what they call an accredited investor. And what that means is they have to have an income of at least $200,000 a year, or have a net worth of over $1 million outside of their primary residence. So it's kind of for higher net worth individuals, people who are looking for just a passive investment where they don't have to do anything, but they can still make money. And that's what we've put together, and we're out raising capital to build up our reserves so we can go out and buy more of these mortgage notes.
What year was it established?
Just last year, 2023.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And where all how many podcasts have you been on so far? Do you know?
Oh, goodness.
A
A
lot.
lot. Probably a couple dozen at least. Yeah, a lot. It's a fantastic business.
They've
It's
been like business podcasts or
mostly business podcasts. Yeah. And some real estate podcasts as well. So the real estate people oftentimes are the ones who want to do it themselves and be active investors, which is fantastic. The business podcasts, typically those are the ones who are looking for a passive investment outside of their regular business, but a little
what
bit of
about
both.
the learning process? Like, do one like business versus real estate want to learn more if they're like just starting off, and they don't know as much as you do, because
Sure.
you're like a veteran at this.
Yeah. So, it's kind of interesting. A couple of years ago, so I'll back up. Back in 2009, I went to my very first conference all about note investing, and it was held down in New Orleans. And I was blown away because I just kind of heard about this. I just started learning about it. And then I go into this room, and there's, over 200 people that knew exactly what I was talking about and had, years of experience. And I thought, this is amazing. And so since then, it's become an important part of my business to go and attend as many of these conferences as I can, just for the networking, just to make sure that, I'm in the know, and people know me. And really, that's where a lot of the deals get done, is just those personal relationships. So 2 years ago, I actually took over one of those conferences. And so I'm running that now. And so that's super excited. And I love, meeting with people and chatting all about a thing that I really love doing. And we could talk all day about it, but it's just so much fun. And it's fun to get everybody together and come together and hopefully get some deals done.
Yeah, you've been somewhat like, have you been virtually like in the mix with United States, or have you came to the United States, or do you like travel between Canada and the United States, or
Yeah,
the weird?
for sure. Great question. So I live in Canada, but everything I do is in the US. So I actually haven't done any deals, any kind of business in Canada for over 15 years now. And it's fantastic. I really enjoy it. So I come down to the US for conferences, and really that's about it. And that's, again, one of the things I love about the business is you can do it remotely. So I've been buying these mortgage notes and working them through and, turning them around, or all kinds of different scenarios, all from my home office in Canada, which is fantastic. I don't ever have to go and visit the property. I do have a local person go and visit the property, make sure that the value is what we think it is, that kind of thing. But it's fantastic to be able to do remotely as well.
And so you're basically in Canada, but you travel, you do business with United States. So tell me, like, how do you, we got 3 minutes left. So what, when you do business with the United States and not Canada, does that actually, you know, hurt the situation? Because I know that sound weird, but you know, Canadian government get mad at
Yeah.
you, maybe, because you're taking, U.S. side over Canada.
No, it works really well, and luckily our two countries are really good friends. And so what
I like
happens is
it.
I make all my money in the US, and then as I bring it home, obviously now I have to file a US tax return. So I do that. Canada, you may have heard, has higher taxes. So anything that I pay in the US is a credit towards my Canadian taxes. And then in Canada, I just pay the difference. So it works really quite seamlessly, better than I thought it would initially, but it works quite well.
Okay, last 2 minutes. Where are you going in the future with all of this?
I'm actually creating my own retirement. So the idea of this fund that we put together is really a way to create notes that I can purchase for myself down the road and into my own retirement portfolio. So it really a means to an end. I'm looking to have my own portfolio, a couple of dozen notes in there, and then I can more or less retire. That's the definition of financially free, where I've got passive income taking care of all my expenses. So my youngest son, he's 14. He's in grade 9, so he's got another basically 4 years till he graduates. I figure he's probably going to leave the house after that. So the idea is once he leaves the house, we're financially free, and my wife and I can go and travel, visit kids, do whatever we want.
I like the sound of that. I hope nothing but the best for you and your wife. And tell me, how can the people reach you?
Best place to go would be my website. It's earnestinvesting.com. That's EARNEST. So earnestinvesting.com is the place to go. There's a place on there where you can set an appointment to come talk to me. You can check out my conference. There's a link to my conference coming up next May in Nashville. But that's the place to go. Get whatever information you're looking for.
Stay on the line. Thank you, everybody who joined the show today. You take care, be safe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Thank you.